Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second talk of today, considering this is our third Sunday of the month. We had one at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, and now we're having our usual time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And we even have people joining us twice today, which is so exciting. And I am your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, and I am finally back from my trip away, though we are going to be leaving you once again because we are going to be off in India on our retreat next week and the week after. So I know you'll miss us terribly. So let's make the most of the time we have together. But first, I need to do our YouTube spiel. So thank you so much for joining us, whether you're here live or watching on the YouTube replay. And if you'd like to support us in addition to watching our video, you can subscribe to our channel, you can leave a comment, you can share our video.
Don't forget, like our video.
Yeah, that's the one I forgot this morning too. Yes, like our video if you like it.
Even if you hate it, like it.
Just to be contrarian, why not? So you can also support us by donating to our PayPal or our Stripe. Those are links that are in the description, along with our social media, which is primarily our Facebook group. So you could join that as well. And of course, I always like to encourage people to join our email list so that you can stay in touch with us no matter what crazy stuff happens with YouTube and Facebook and all the others. Seems like email is that dinosaur that just won't die, right? So I like to hold on to that and use that as a strong foundation for us to stay in touch with each other. And it is via our email list that you can join our special email list to take part in our live YouTube videos via Zoom. Anything I have left out, Mushtaq?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so we had a great talk this morning in which we talked about, the deeper nuances of the super effort, as is known in Gurdjieffian circles. And we had our own kind of spin on it, per se. So if you missed that video this morning, you can check that out. But this evening, we are going to be talking about Sufis, the Matrix, and the trap of false dichotomy. So this should be another interesting one this evening. Ah, a lot to unpack there, Mushtaq.
Yeah, but we can do it.
Yeah, I think
Not
we
that
can do
hard.
that together.
Yeah.
Yep,
Are we ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So let me tell you a story. Mullah Nasruddin and his donkey went on a trip. They decided that they had to go from one city to another. And they got to the place that they were going. I don't know where it was, but it wasn't where they started. And they found a chaikhone where they wanted to stop, and that's a tea house. Uh, and they want to stop and have some tea and relax. And as Mullah is sitting in the tea house sipping tea, and his donkey is looking enviously at him through the window, this man comes up. From his dress and countenance, he was a Nubian. And he sits down at Mullah's table and says, "May I join you?" Mullah says, "It seems you have." And the man says, "I come to offer you a gift." Mullah thought for a minute and said, "Mostly I like gifts." And the man says, "This is what I have for you. I have living in the illusion and experiencing the truth. And it's very simple. I have these two flasks, these two vials. One is red and the other is blue. If you take the blue vial, you'll forget the entirety of your spiritual path and you will be content living a normal life for the rest of your life. If you take the red vial, on the other hand, you will see what is behind the veil of this world and it will change you and you will never be able to go back either. So he holds them out and he says, you choose. Which one are you going to take? Mullah looks at them and he reaches out and he takes both of them. And he gets up from the table and he goes over and he shows them to his donkey. His donkey sniffs them, snorts, sneezes a couple of times, and makes a face at Mullah like, are you an idiot? And Mullah looks at them again and tosses them down the well outside. The man looks at him and says, what are you doing? You have to choose. Mullah looks at him and says, maybe I have to choose, but I don't have to choose either of those. Neither of those is my path. I choose not to choose your truth and your illusion. And with that, Mullah gets up and wanders off with his donkey, who gives the Nubian guy the hairy eyeball as he leaves. So this is a little bit like, you know, the poem, roses are red, violets are blue. You think this is going to rhyme, but it ain't gonna. It's a little bit like that. There is a false dichotomy. And, you know, obviously this is a little play on the Matrix movie, because that's where you find the false dichotomy, the red pill or the blue pill. Go back into the Matrix and forget it, or come out into the Matrix into reality, which is just another part of the Matrix. As we find out, if we have the strength to watch the rest of the sequels to the movie. It's all part of the game. Sufis understand this. You remember Rabia, who walked through the town with a torch and a bucket of water? She wanted to burn heaven and drown hell because that's your false dichotomy. You go to paradise. You sit around drinking milk of paradise forever. Or you go to hell and you get burned up forever. Both sound incredibly boring. One may taste better than the other, but you know, what can you do? So here's a thought for you. We are trained to choose from false dichotomies. Are you right or are you left? Right? That's a common one right now in America. Pick one. Do you support the left or do you support the right? And there's no place for going, well, I don't know. Both of these guys are idiots. They're all crazy. None of them have my best interests in mind. I choose something totally different. You don't realize that you have that choice. Do you want to be Catholic or Protestant? Do you want to be Sunni or Shia?
I was hoping you'd say that one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
there are all of these false dichotomies that we are presented with every day. And I will tell you that there are three qualities of false dichotomies. There is the dichotomy of the instincts. Anybody guess what that one is? What is the dichotomy of the instincts?
It's okay to have just a guess, but Kyle,
Yeah, I think that would be like fight or flight.
Yeah,
Instinct.
runaway, attack, eat, be eaten, all of those things. Then we
offense,
have,
defense.
yeah, then we have the dichotomy of the emotions. You may notice that this lines up with the emotional centers or the centers of the person. So, instinctual center, emotional center. What are the dichotomies of the emotions?
Love or hate.
That's a very, very common one. Love or hate. Also, desire and repulsion.
Mm. Kyle, did you have another offering?
Yeah, same thing. Like it
Yeah.
or don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we have probably the trickiest one for most people, the dichotomies of the mind. Can anybody think of what those might be?
Chris, true or false? Is that what you said?
True or false? That is a very good one. Yes. That was what screwed up Aristotle.
Mm. Whitney offers wrong or right.
Yep.
And Nancy, do you have a thought?
I'm not sure if it's too different, but I was thinking yes and no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be included in there on the conceptual level.
What
Yeah.
about belief versus, let's say, science?
Mm.
Um, that is too much of an abstract because a lot of people believe in science.
Fair enough.
Possibly knowledge and ignorance.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll say one for me personally that I've caught myself in whenever I am thinking to myself, whether or not I should ABC. And like I kind of like use that as a pause moment when I catch myself thinking whether or not I should that I'm basically thinking of trapped in a false dichotomy of this.
Okay. So there is a fourth choice. And excuse me. And this fourth choice will transcend all of the dichotomies. So, Aristotle's logic. In Aristotle's logic, in his deductive logic, uh, a proposition is either true or false. And you can determine the truth of a conclusion by the truth of it, the premises that lead to the conclusion. And the classic example of that is all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, right? That's the first syllogism everybody learns for some reason. It's a boring one, but that's what we got.
Or even if you haven't learned logic, you probably heard that one.
Yeah.
Just as like an
Yeah, like an example.
aphorism. Yeah.
And you'll notice that that syllogism is absolutely rigid. There is no room for maybe in there. So you can screw it up a little bit by going, all men are mortal and all women are mortal. Therefore, Socrates is a woman. It's a bad syllogism, by the way. I would give you an F on your paper if you gave me that one. But think about that. So let me give you an example of why this is problematic. Osama, would you like to talk with me tomorrow at 2 p.m. your time or 4 p.m. your time?
4 p.m. my time.
Okay. Look at what just happened. Who can take that apart a little bit? Who can see the inherent flaw in the interaction that just happened?
That's called the alternate choice close.
Say again?
The alternate choice close. You
Yeah,
say,
it's a leverage technique.
Yeah.
It's a form of manipulation. And it is an embedded assumption. What is the embedded assumption?
That you're going to talk
Yeah,
tomorrow.
that we're going to talk tomorrow. And you know, I'm a fun person to talk to, so maybe he would like to talk to me, but I didn't give him a choice to say, "Oh, I can't talk with you tomorrow."
Or
So
he,
this is a
or
form of covert manipulation.
Ian, you were going to say?
I was just going to say, or he could have said 5 p.m.
Yeah,
He
he
could
could
have
have said
thrown,
that,
yeah, he could have thrown his own curveball. Yeah.
but then he still would be talking to me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The hidden assumption in this interaction is that Osama is going to talk with me tomorrow. And it only appears that he has choice. He does have choice, but he might not know it by the way it was presented to him. So, as a good dervish, when you are presented with either or choices, it behooves you to look for a third choice, especially when the choices presented to you are limited in a particular way.
Uh, Nancy says, so are we obligated to be good dervishes?
No, but it's fun.
Mhm.
And you can help people's heads explode if you really get into it.
Mhm.
So think about the apparency of choice without choice. Because each of the dichotomies that we've talked about, the dichotomy of the instinct, the dichotomy of the emotions, the dichotomy of the mind, are all false choices. Whereas one of my teachers used to say, if you only find two choices that you can do, you're a robot.
Ooh.
Thoughts, Noor?
I'm sorry. I was choosing to be distracted by Chris's driving down the highway and showing us beautiful vistas of the land where he lives in the southwestern desert of the US.
Hang on. Everybody should see this for a second.
All right.
Voila.
Wait a second, I'm only choosing to have my camera facing one way. I'm like embedded in this false choice here. I could choose the other way.
No, this is a blessing. Thank you, Chris.
This makes me lonesome. I mean,
Oh,
the saguaros are nice. There's
yeah, that
rabbit
was lovely.
bush,
Thank you.
creosote, all the
right.
wonderful things.
We lost Kevin again. That's all right.
That's okay. He probably got bored. I would get bored too.
All right, so back on task.
Back on task. Okay. But that was worth it.
All right, so we were discussing, Mushtaq, this idea of the getting out of the dichotomies that are typically presented to us, whether they're intellectual or instinctive or emotional. We get into those traps, or we are presented with those traps that we could step into
Yes.
all the time. That's the thing. And it is with this insight that we can, again, make a choice to step into these dichotomies and play them as a game, or we can get stuck in them and be ruled by them and have our choices limited by external forces.
Yeah. And the biggest dichotomy, the one that gets the most people, is the red pill, blue pill. You can live in the illusion or you can be awake.
And it's often interesting when you're trying to talk to someone about these things who has never really explored this stuff before. This idea of waking up. It really, I mean, speaking from experience, it so easily falls into this idea of, you could take the red pill or the blue pill. Which one do you want? These are your choices. Do you want to be doomed forever? Do you want to live your life as is?
Or do you want to be the Buddha?
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to enter transcendent sacred realms? And it starts getting really, you're basically giving them a presentation of a false dichotomy right then and there.
Yeah. And you have to remember that in the Matrix movies, Neo and everybody else never really got out of the Matrix. Even if they weren't attached to the machines, they were still in the Matrix. They were still living out this mechanical behavior that was inevitably going to lead to the Great Reset, so the machine could keep on going.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, for those of you who never saw the whole series, sorry, not sorry. And this is the thing that we come across all the time in various teachings in various places. They give you this false dichotomy. You can either live your life as a machine, or you can do what we tell you to do, and you will be awake. And it isn't really quite like that. So what is the third choice? What is the choice that you can make that is neither the red pill nor the blue pill, especially if you don't have a donkey to help you?
To just walk your own path.
What would that look like?
Making your choices. What's the word? According to whatever circumstances you find yourself in, as opposed to being framed in a system.
Yeah, avoiding systems is useful. The way to do that is to balance your centers. Each of your centers is subject to its dichotomies. And there are a lot of them. So with your moving center, you have the moving part of the moving center, the instinctual part of the moving center, and the sexual part of the moving center. And you have to balance all of those. And at the same time, you have the emotional center and the higher emotional center, and you have to balance those. And then you have the intellectual center and higher intellectual center, and you have to balance those. And balancing, amongst other things, means freeing yourself from the dichotomies of each center. There are never just two choices. There are infinite choices. Fun, no?
When you put it like that, it sounds impossible.
Doesn't sound impossible to me. Why does it sound impossible to you?
Too many moving parts.
Dude, don't you do like high level programming? How many moving parts are there in a decent program that consists of 5,000 lines of code?
That's a pretty small program.
See, you just ran into one of your dichotomies. Because by their nature, all dichotomies are going to be self-limiting statements in one form or another. It's going to be like what I did with Osama. You have the apparency of choice with no real choice. Yes, Osama.
Yeah. So the challenge that I'm having is that even in the solution that's being presented, there is a polarity, whether to choose it or not to choose it, right? And I can see the loop that this can create. Oh, I gotta balance my centers. If you want, quote unquote, liberation of that, you gotta balance the centers. That's a dichotomy.
No.
How so?
I mean, if you phrase it in that way, it can be seen as a dichotomy. And if you look at the process of it, the process of it is find more choices for each of the centers beyond the dichotomy. And there is the possibility of there's some other way to do this. Maybe you don't need to balance the centers to do what you're doing. Maybe it's another technique that works for you.
Nancy.
I was thinking that maybe the way out of the red and blue is that you're dipping in and out of illusion and reality. Your life is a mixture. You're not stuck with one or the other.
That would probably be part of it.
Yeah.
But let
I
me
mean,
that I gave Osama an answer that was satisfactory. Because if not, I'll come up with another answer.
right.
Um, I understand it, and yet I can still see the to me it sounds like there's some level of polarization that's happening. Um, and I understand that when one is presented with only two options, 0 or 1, black or white, this or that, it's already a losing game, right? This is, I think, what I'm understanding what you're saying is let's view it from a different lens or see the other options that are available. Um, that's what I understand from what you're saying.
Yes, that is accurate. And when doing something like balancing the centers, knowing that one, you don't have to balance the centers or not balance the centers, at least not in the way that I'm talking about it. You, like I said, can find another method to do it, most probably. And what you get is greater choice. And greater choice means greater freedom. Rather than just having yes, no, you also get maybe.
I like that.
Yeah.
If you can speak a little bit more about greater choice, that's a nice.
Yeah. That's the problem with dichotomies is that they limit your choices, just like I did with you, limiting you to talking to me by giving you the apparency of choice, picking this time or that time. But I didn't let you know that there were more choices for you than that you had more freedom than that. You had the freedom to say, I don't want to talk with you.
Or I would say for me, it's almost like I'm sorry, my light turned off, so I'm futzing with
Now
it.
you are dark and mysterious.
Yeah. But I think of it as like choices being invisible to us for one reason or another, like the array of options available to us. What gets presented tends to be either the most obvious or the most mm, convenient for others, might be the ones that get offered to us most obviously, but there's typically a whole array of possibilities for us to act upon sitting behind those two most obvious choices. And those tend to be invisible to us either because we are so preoccupied with what's been immediately presented to us. Maybe we're afraid to see more options. Maybe we're so overwhelmed that we can't see them. And I think that's why we might bring in something like working on navigating the well-being and balance of our centers so that we can be more grounded and more open to seeing extended possibilities.
Yeah, that makes total sense. The way that I understand this um is like somebody who wants to buy a business or buy real estate or something like that and believe like, oh, I don't have the funds to do so, not knowing that there's uh, so many options that you don't necessarily need cash in order to buy, right? There's so many different opportunities in order to acquire, but 99% of people don't know that that's an option. And that, I mean, that example goes in like so many different things, right? And I like how Mustafa, you said these dichotomies present themselves in limiting belief statements. That resonates.
Yeah,
I can see that.
good. Whitney, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks for your patience. I just wanted to make a couple relevant points. So, Whitney, please go ahead.
I When you say where do we start, for me, the answer is always self-observation. So instead of me thinking about being presented from the outside, A or B, I was thinking in terms of when can I see in my internal landscape where I've become polarized, where I say this is wrong or this is right, and I have polarized myself and imbalanced in my intellectual center, be what center it is. So I feel like that would be kind of where I would want to start, just to see where I had personally limited myself and
That would be
you know.
very smart.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that was dancing in the back of my mind and I almost lost that thread, but you brought it back in, and thank you so much for doing that
Yeah.
because that is part of this is learning how to read our own polarizations in that way, to tune into those and kind of tease them out and unpack them so that we can get a little bit less stuck. This is not always happening from without. It is often happening from within. We think things need to be a certain way.
Ah.
So thank you for that, Whitney.
Yeah, and that is a very, very important point, that the real work is not outside, it's inside. So first, work on your own dichotomies. Then work on the dichotomies of that are externally placed upon your centers. Then you can work on the rest of the world.
Nancy.
Nancy.
I was thinking that part of what leads to insisting there are only two choices is feeling that you're in a hurry. You must decide quickly. And
Urgency.
how do you uh get the feeling of having enough time to think?
Well, especially if this is coming externally, they don't give you
Hmm.
enough time to think.
Hmm.
That and what I did with Osama are two very, very classic hard sales techniques.
Hmm.
And you see it
Yeah.
working every day. You can have this wonderful thing for the next 24 hours for half price. And here's a clock ticking down to show you how much time you have left to decide to buy this. Would you like to buy it now, or do you want to think about it? Because if you think about it too long, it ain't going to be there at this incredible price.
Oh, I was actually thinking that the first choice was a classic parent move. The parent wants to get the kid out of the house with a sweater. Do you want the red sweater or the blue sweater?
Ah,
Yeah.
yep. So, I mean,
And
sorry, go ahead, Nancy. I have a thought, but I
oh
can
well,
wait.
just the parent is hurrying the kid because the parent is hurried.
There can
Yeah.
be that. I also think that this is one of the differences between the needs of a child and the needs of an adult.
Hmm.
Children often need structure in
Hmm.
order to,
Yeah, as a parent, it may be your job to manipulate your kids into not being stupid as often as
yeah,
possible.
I mean, it makes life easier on both the child and the parent. It's, in a healthy parent-child relationship, creating structured choices can be a good thing, and it can lead to skill building towards this more complex and developed ability to choose.
Hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes, like when we're under stress, we may say to our friend or a partner, like, I'm having what we might call decision paralysis right now. I want you to choose two things on this list of things that we could get for dinner tonight that you would be cool with, and I will pick one of those two, and I will consent to that choice.
Mhm. Oh yeah, and just as a customer, I can be swamped by too many choices.
Yeah.
I'd rather have something simpler.
Or, the time that many of us have spent on like streaming services like Netflix, just trying to choose a damn TV show to waste time on because we want to
Mhm.
find something to relax while watching. And then we spend 3 hours just trying to choose. And then the night's gone. No show got
That is
watched.
terrible. Ah.
Yeah. But when it comes to, you know, the illusion of limited choice, that's a whole other thing.
Mhm.
So, self-observation is the tool by which you use to find your false dichotomies, whether they are coming from the inside or the outside. When you find a false dichotomy, your job is to challenge it. Is there a third choice? Is there a fourth choice? Do I need to make a choice at all? All of these things can be true for you.
Yeah, I mean, I have often said to people who feel pressured to make a choice that between two things, let's say. And sometimes the third choice is you don't need to decide between these two things right now. It's okay to spend more time thinking about it. Non-action is a choice. So yeah, Mushtaq, would you say, I mean, start with looking for that third choice.
Yeah, that is inevitably a good step.
Now, trying to see how I'm gonna word this. What is there for that third choice, fourth choice, whatever it is there a point of how much a person actually believes in that being a choice?
It helps if you actually believe that it's a choice. Yeah. If it's something that you could take action on.
Right. Yeah, what is that? What is that?
Give me an example of a choice that you need to make.
Um, I don't know. I want to go to Turkey. I want to go to Turkey, Jordan, and Morocco.
Okay.
Um,
And where is the dichotomy in that?
it's a little pricey,
Okay.
but
So,
I want to. There's a desire there. So the options or the dichotomy is I go or don't go, right? That's kind of like the right in front of my face kind of these decisions or the choices.
those are two choices.
Right.
Or I cannot afford to go to Morocco, Turkey, and Jordan. But I can afford to go to Morocco. So today I will go to Morocco, and then I will rethink which country I want to visit next. There's a third choice. Or maybe I'll just go to Egypt.
Yeah, that was that was on the list too, but I kind of I put that, my friends are there now. I'm like, maybe
Yeah.
not.
And then I could do this. Yeah, I don't know if you can still do it, but when I was traveling around the Middle East as a kid, you could get from Morocco all the way to Turkey along the coast, working on a tramp steamer. And you might spend the day shoveling coal or swabbing decks
Swabbing decks.
swabbing decks or anything like that. But you could get a job that would take you from point A to point B. And not only would you get there, but you'd have a little extra money by the time you got there, assuming that they didn't mug you and kill you and throw you overboard.
So you see, so that choice that you just presented, when I first hear that, I'm like, nah, that's right. But it is a legitimate choice, right?
Yeah.
It's a real choice, but the believability, or for me to like, or someone can say, well, is there a possibility that you can make that, whatever the cost of this whole trip, you can probably make that number in 2 weeks. You can make that money.
Yeah, it's possible.
Right? But that believability of it, what does it take for a choice to become a real choice rather than just an idea?
Basically, for you to see how that particular choice could operate in the world. I mean, I think about catching a boat from Morocco to Egypt, which I actually did because it was cheap. And it was doubly cheap if you helped out on the boat.
Did you swab decks?
I did not swab decks, nor did I shovel coal because it was a diesel powered boat. But I helped in the kitchen, which, as you know, would be a perfect place for me.
Yep.
I learned really interesting things too from the cook. Cooking on board a ship is totally different than cooking on land because everything's moving all the time.
I can imagine. I mean, there's some viability testing that has to happen then.
Yeah.
But
basically, you have to see that you could do that.
yeah. But
I could see making enough money to do that in 2 weeks. It would be incredibly risky, but it could be done. And basically, you day trade on stocks, and you can probably pull it off if you're smart. Most people aren't that smart. I'm not that smart. But that's a possibility. Or you go to a casino, you play some blackjack. Noor is laughing at me. I do not play blackjack.
Nope.
But if I did, I would win.
Your daddy did.
My daddy did, yes.
Yeah.
True fact. My father paid for his and my mother's honeymoon in Vegas in 2 hours at the blackjack table.
Can't get away with it that easily anymore, yeah. But
no,
he did it.
And he was smart. He didn't get greedy.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was there's some testing, some viability testing that may be part of you figuring out the pros and cons of the various options available to you. But one thing we're pointing out here is not to prematurely close doors on yourself just because you have a belief that, doing a couch to 5K is impossible for you. If that's something that might be on the spinning wheel of options when you're thinking about, what's a way that I could be more physically active, for example.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. And I mean, we see this. People are, some people are in maybe toxic relationships, traumatic relationships, abusive relationships, who might not see leaving as an option, as a viable option,
Yes.
or an actual choice, right? Because it's not believable. So what is it that makes that shift? Like, no, this is an actual choice that you can take action on. Yeah, that's that kind of mechanism.
Right.
If it involves actual visualization of being able to see one taking that action, is it future pacing? Is that
future pacing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually did a bit of a talk on that, about, a scenario in which I had a friend who was in that position of not being able to imagine getting out of a harmful situation. And it really does take time and to some extent a desire to be able to see other possibilities besides being stuck. And so one thing that comes down to is taking care of yourself and figuring out how to give yourself the capacity. We talk about filling one's own cup and plugging the leaks and all of that. Those things make it possible for us to make greater leaps into realms that previously seemed just unreachable. So it can take some working up to creating more options for ourselves. Some things just take a little imagination, some things take much more, and that's just a fact. But I think that's why Mushtaq's talking about, quote unquote, balancing the centers, because this gets into building that capacity to take seemingly more expansive risks into possibility. And sometimes very blatantly expansive and risky moves. They aren't just in our imagination, but are in fact really challenging choices to pursue and act on. But we often sell ourselves short and feel like it's impossible to go there, to take on those challenges. Anything you would add to that, Mushtaq?
No, I think you wrapped that up quite nicely.
Yeah, maybe we can put at the end card, we can put a link to that video. I mean, it was a while ago, kind of rough, but you can at least get
If I can find it,
yeah.
I'll do it.
Okay.
So, any more thoughts or questions on this?
I have a lot swirling in terms of considering first force, second force, and third force. Just like, am I my own, denying force, or am I trying to affirm something that keeps getting denied? And then that opening to the reconciling force, the third force to come in, but also thinking about shocks. I know that some of the things that are very mechanical with the false dichotomies, there's no choice because you're so stuck there. You can hardly even, you're totally convinced of this no or the yes, or you just can't get out. And so you do need to find some way to shock the system, whether that comes from you applying your own shock or something from the outside. Um, but I feel like that mechanical, polarized, whatever center you're in, like it's so hard to get out of because you're convinced that it's no.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It is extremely difficult sometimes to get out of it, which is why self-observation is so necessary to this. When the dichotomies are always first and second force, as far as I can tell. I've never seen a dichotomy be first and third force. So you have the yes and the no. You have move towards and move away from, but you don't have the moving against, which is how I think of it physically. And finding the third force is one of the jobs that we have when dealing with the dichotomies. And
I don't
that's,
necessarily know. Can you speak about these forces? Are you talking about something specific? Is this like
yeah,
diff language?
this is the law of three, that at base there are three forces in the universe: the wholly affirming force, the wholly denying force, and the wholly reconciling force. Those are Gurdjieff's words.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
So yeah, affirming tends to be expansive. Denying tends to be kind of contracting. And then reconciling is kind of like the balance between those. So in this case, Mushtaq was talking about this idea of the dichotomy. That's inherently limited and contracted in its scope. So that's why he was relating it to, in his point, in his point of view. And I guess I agree with that.
One would
In,
hope.
yeah, that a dichotomy tends to be a manifestation of this denying force.
Or affirming force. There will be a yes and a no.
Okay, yeah, I think I may have misunderstood what you were
It's getting
communicating there.
late. Words are harder now than they were an hour ago.
Blather, blather, yeah. Plus we've been at this all day now,
Yeah.
so it's a big day for us, these two talk Sundays. So, yeah, I mean polarities there. The yes is going to be I want to do all the things. The denying is going to be this specifically must be done. And
Or I must not do this.
or yes, this has to, yeah. So regardless, the idea here is not to get stuck in the trap of the illusion of limited choice.
Exactly right. And that ain't easy. That requires some work.
ongoing for
Yep.
all of us. Yep. Anyone who is actively in the work is someone who is constantly being challenged by the false dichotomies within and without. That goes for me. How about you, Mushtak?
Nah.
Never. So don't be discouraged by by the ways in which you limit yourself because there's room to grow. That's what that means.
Yeah. And every time you find the third choice, you are a little bit less robotic. And that's a good thing.
Any last questions or thoughts? I don't know. I know Anissa popped in sort of in the middle, but I want to give you the
I want to
opportunity,
pick on her
Anissa.
anyway.
Yeah, if you'd like. All right. Uh, I think we've heard from, oh, Alka, how about you? What's on your mind?
Um, I think I'll be watching the Shakespeare show To Be or Not to Be very differently. That's how I was, that's how I was thinking.
Sounds legit to me. Cool. All right, I think we have heard from, yeah, no worries. All right. It's great to have you here, Anissa, and that is rewarding in and of itself. So
Yeah,
thank you.
it actually made our day.
Yeah. All right.
I
So
haven't
I
been
think,
kidding about that.
nope.
So let's go to Brady
Brady
Bunch
Bunch
mode.
mode.
Voila.
Yay. It's been so great to see all of you, to catch up a bit and see some newer and some familiar faces. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really great to hang out for this little while together. And now that we're in Brady Bunch mode, just to remind you all, we are not going to be here next week or the following week after that, but we will be back the weekend after September 10th. That's when we return from India.
Yeah, and
And
there will be fanfare, so you'll know that we're back.
so in the meantime, take good care of yourselves, be well. Try not to miss us too much, but maybe just a little, because we will miss you too. All right.
All right.
And we can wait to each other, wait to everybody watching on the
Bye,
replay.
folks.
See you in a while. Bye.